of the past, present and future? Did financial troubles persuade Professor Plum to make a killing? Or did Mrs. White's passion for wildlife unleash her own animal instincts? Which of course leaves us with the Reverend Green. Double-crossed and out of pocket, did he send Sir Nigel Hussey to meet his maker? Yes, butter wouldn't melt, would it? And to help to solve tonight's case, our celebrity detectives. Would you first meet journalist, broadcaster and keeper of the family secrets, Carol Thatcher. And with her, someone who's used to asking rapid-fire questions, blockbusting Bob Holness. Now, arrayed against them, a man accustomed to dealing in hard facts, it's ITN newsreader Dermot Murnaghan. And with him, commentator and Radio 1 DJ Liz Kershaw. Well, what do they make of what they've just seen? I want their instinctive feelings at this stage about all this. So first of all, from Carol and Bob, I want to know who did it, what with and where.
We thought it was Miss Scarlett in the dining room with an automatic pistol.
No, never.
Doesn't get a favourable reaction from the jury out there. OK, Dermot and Liz, your gut feeling on this?
Well, our completely wild guess is that it was Mrs. White with the snake in the kitchen.
As if I would do such a thing. I wouldn't dream of it.
Emotional plea for innocence. Well, listen, you at home have a choice now. You can either try and beat our sleuths at their own game, or you can put your feet up and sneer at them, because I'm about to reveal the room, the weapon and the killer of Sir Nigel Hussey. So if you want to linger in suspense over the next half hour, I'd advise you to look away now. Okay, you can open your eyes again now, and we're going to start the investigation. And remember, the killer is certain to lie during the inquiries. The innocents will always tell the truth in the cross-examinations, when each suspect can be asked just one question. So, Carol and Bob, who are you going to start with?
Colonel Mustard, please. Can I ask you exactly what did you have in mind when we saw you fingering the G-string with rather an evil glint in your eye? Was it personal thrills or the murder of a cabinet minister, perhaps?
Well, I was so incensed the way he'd humiliated poor Vivian that I put the G-string in my pocket with the express purpose of going to the tabloid newspapers and exposing him for the sleaze bag that he was.
Ah, you were going to snitch?
Yes.
OK. Satisfied with that? Let's move across to Dermot and Liz. A question, please.
We'd like to start with Mrs. White. Mrs. White, as a supposed lover of wildlife, why did you take a snake out of its natural habitat into the kitchen?
That's a good question. Because I love wildlife so much, I wanted this dreadful man Hussey also to love it and not take all their land away from them. So I brought it into the kitchen to present it to him, to show how beautiful that snake was.
Didn't occur to you that it might bite him?
Well, I get absent-minded at times.
I see. I see. Thank you very much indeed, Mrs. White. All right, Carol and Bob.
Miss Scarlett, has the gun I think we saw in your handbag ever been fired?
Well, I have fired it before. I mean, you know, where I come from, everyone has guns.
Before?
Have you ever fired it in anger?
Oh, no, I've just shot at cans.
OK. OK.
Likely story.
Dermot and Liz.
We'd like to ask Mrs. Peacock, do you always wear gloves in the house?
Yes, I do. Occasionally I'm a hand model, and I like to keep my hands in very exquisite condition.
But surely, being her house, her fingerprints, I sense that's the meaning behind the question, would be all over everything anyway, wouldn't they?
We're trying to find out if she's lying or not.
All right. OK. She seemed very calm under that cross-examination. Carol and Bob.
Reverend Green.
Yes.
You're very clearly a golf addict.
Absolutely.
But would you actually murder someone with one of your beloved clubs?
Good heavens, no. I mean, I am a man of the cloth. I wouldn't strike a man in anger, let alone with a golf club, good heavens. Actually, I think I had every reason to. I gave that man my word. He was a cabinet minister. I don't know whether you have much experience of people in politics, but if you would know that I would expect a cabinet minister to honour his word. He let me down. I would like to have struck him. but I certainly did not do the evil deed.
I wonder how long his sermons last on the Sunday.
Well, I was just thinking, I think the Reverend doth protest a little too much. All right, Dermot and Liz, last question from you.
Yes, Professor Plum, this was a very serious crime, yet when you found the body, as you did, you seemed to show no emotion whatsoever. Indeed, it took you quite a while to mention it to Mrs. White.
Well, he was only a cabinet minister. And, I had other things on my mind, really. You know, one does, I have to say, get used to death at Arlington Grange. And as I say, I was preoccupied with various other ideas about my Bob at Leicester and so forth.
It must have been pretty important. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Plum. And it's time now for some deductions. So, Carol and Bob, who did the murder?
Well, we're going to plump for Professor Plum with the G-string, not an inner G-string, in the kitchen.
Oh, really? Oh, really? The intellectual pygmies.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's move across to Dermot and Liz. Your accusation, please.
Mrs. Peacock with the crossbow in the drawing room.
That's very impertinent.
Impertinent or not, that's what they think. Let's just go back on this. Carol and Bob, you're saying it was in the kitchen, the G-string was the weapon, and Professor Plum is the killer. Well, I can tell you that you've got 2 out of 3 of your deductions correct. 2 out of 3, so think on. Dermot and Liz, you said in the drawing room with the crossbow, and the villain of the piece is Mrs. Peacock. None out of 3.
Oh.
None out of 3. All right, we'll discuss the significance of that shortly, because our investigation continues after the break, when we'll examine some important new evidence that's just in. So join us again in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Cluedo, where we're trying to solve the murder of Cabinet Minister Sir Nigel Hussey. Now, what have we discovered so far? We began with 6 rooms, 6 weapons, and of course, 6 suspects. Well, Bob and Carol alleged that the murder took place in the kitchen, the killer used the G-string, and the murderer was Professor Plum. Now, 2 of their 3 deductions were absolutely right. Dermot and Liz thought that Sir Nigel died in the drawing room. He was shot with the crossbow, and the finger on the trigger was Mrs. Peacock's. None correct, I'm afraid, but it does mean that they've eliminated a room, a weapon, and, of course, Mrs. Peacock. So, Mrs. Peacock, you're in the clear. You're free to go, but we would like you to stay, please, because you may have some information that we could bring to bear on the inquiry. So will you stay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. OK, the questioning is about to resume, but first, some fresh evidence just in. We're going to join Miss Scarlett in the library. Yes, well, that's caused a few furrowed brows. Back to our star detectives now, and from now on, they can question any of the suspects, but after the answers, they have to make a complete deduction. So, Dermot and Liz, you can start.
Well, I'd like to ask Colonel Mustard a question. Did MI5 train you to garrote people with knicker elastic?
No, they certainly didn't. Not with knicker elastic. But as Sir Nigel said, I was a pretty inept sort of spy, so I don't think I garroted anyone.
But you were trained to garrote?
Yes, I suppose you could say I was, yes.
Would knicker elastic stand up to the tension?
I actually am not an expert in knicker elastic.
All right, you have to make a deduction now.
Another guess. OK, this time we're going to try, and probably no more successfully, Colonel Mustard, the automatic pistol, and the drawing room.
OK. You're saying it's the drawing room, the pistol, and Colonel Mustard. I have to tell you that you've got 1 out of 3. 1 out... Oh, you're pleased with that, are you?
Yeah.
You think you're on the trail now? OK, let's move across to Carol and Bob, who are doing very well. Can they close the net?
We'll try. Miss Scarlett, we saw you in the additional evidence tucking the gun into your scarlet garter. Did you intend to use the gun, or did you intend to pass it on to somebody else as a possible murder weapon?
Well, I put it in my garter because I thought I might need protection.
But you carried the gun in your handbag most of the time. Why did you have to put it in the garter?
I carried it because I'd been gambling and I'd lost a lot of money.